Nick Walker predicts 2023 Mr Olympia win and speaks on Derek Lunsford. Also, who has the biggest legs in bodybuilding now and why you don't know him. All that plus much more. What's up, Desktopers? Xavier Wills here for Desktop Bodybuilding, and we are back for another bodybuilding news video. I'm going to kick this one off with Kennedy and Yanwu. I had no idea who this guy was until I saw this update. I messaged him, actually asked for pronunciation of his name, and he actually competed last year in the NPC Nationals, placing 8th in his class. But looking back on those photos, he wasn't in the best condition. So in this update, he actually put that he's working with Andrew Vu as well. And Andrew Vu is a terrific coach, works with the likes of Natalia Coelho, among many other Olympia competitors. And he actually has previously worked with Hunter Labrada as well. And Kennedy is looking fantastic in these updates. I think he's about 7 or so weeks out, give or take a couple of weeks from his pro qualifier. And I think that he has to be one of the front runners. And right now, he's probably one of the best amateur bodybuilders in the world currently, because when you look at his shape, when you look at his muscle bellies from the front and from the side, he's phenomenal. He does lack a little bit in the back, but what he lacks in the back, he brings in spades from the side and the front. And if he's able to bring great conditioning, which I believe he will, working with Andrew Vu, he has to be a front runner for his pro card this year. Another phenomenal amateur bodybuilder who's competing in the Amateur Olympia, which, as I mentioned in the previous video, is a rarity for some of these US guys, and that's Elliot Demond, and he is looking absolutely freaky. And the conditioning for this far out, 18 weeks right now, out from the Amateur Olympia, is absolutely phenomenal. I cannot wait to see what this guy looks like on stage, because the conditioning is sort of already there. The muscle is definitely already there. As long as he doesn't burn out during his prep. He's working with Dominic Cardone, I believe. And I mean, he's a great coach and has brought some guys in really, really well. So I'm very excited to see what Elliot Demond looks like on stage. And he already looks like a pro. So the fact that he already looks like a pro, he definitely has to be a front runner. The only thing I'll say is in this front relaxed, in the update, you got to remember the judges are sort of looking at you from this sort of angle. And the fact he has his back arched so much at the top, I think he's sort of selling himself short a little bit in this pose. So I think he improved that a little bit, but I'm sure as he dials it in, these are just update photos. If he brings the hands down a little bit and sort of puts the butt back a little bit more and leans more into it, and I suppose poses for the judges as opposed to posing for the guys up in the back row, then I think this front pose will look even better. So shout out to Elliot Demond and also Kennedy as well, because I think they're going to be future pros. Likely pros this year, and they sort of both have the same weakness as well. It's their back, but that's going to come over time, I'm sure, for both of these guys. And calling it a weakness, I mean, it's being hypercritical, because these guys have phenomenal physiques, and I cannot wait to see them hit the amateur stage, hopefully get their pro cards, and then make their launch into the IFBB Pro League in 2024. Now, our next update is from a guy who looks absolutely phenomenal, 20-year-old on TRT right now, as posted by his coach here, Patrick Tour. He's growing like a weed on lower protein and TRT. And when he put the hashtag 2024 212 pro debut, hashtag slow and steady. So as you can see here, Nihat Kaya is looking absolutely insane in these recent updates. And the fact that he's growing on lower protein and obviously lower gear as well is a true testament to this guy's genetics. So I'm very excited for this guy's future. I actually thought he's 21. Patrick Tour posted that he's 20 years old, so I'm not sure if he's 20 or 21. But even if he's 25, this guy is a star of the future. So very, very excited for this guy to make his 212 pro debut in 2024. And he might be a future 212 Olympia champ, at least by the way things are looking right now. Our next update is from Bodybuilding University's own Brett the Butcher Wilkin. And we got a few updates from Matt Jansen on the backside. And we have some that he posted as well a couple of weeks ago from the front, where he looks absolutely freaky. And the back is something that Brett's wanted to work on and bring up. And by these recent updates, it looks like that's happening. Now, he's right at the start of his Mr Olympia prep at 18 weeks out. And I've got to say that Brett is a guy that has an aesthetic physique. He comes in great condition. He's got nice round muscle bellies. Really for Brett, it's just about size and bringing out those certain body parts he wants to bring up, like his back. So on the back lat spread, it looks way more filled out for sure. The back double bicep, he might not have as big a structure as some of these other guys, but I think that he's going to have that thickness and density and that crazy conditioning, which will really offset any sort of, I suppose, structural width that some of these other guys might actually have on him. And from the front and the side in these other updates that he posted 3 weeks ago, he's looking absolutely monstrous. So the only thing for Brett really is just bring up a little bit more size to match with that crazy conditioning he brings to the stage. And I think that Brett is going to be an absolute star. And I think that he can push for a top 10 finishing in his debut Mr. Olympia. But it's obviously pending how other guys look in this contest as well. Because top 10 in the Olympia these days is a little bit different to what top 10 in the Olympia was maybe to say 4 years ago. So very excited for Brett Wilkin, and we'll have to get him back on another bodybuilding university very soon now that he's a new dad. Our next update comes from Jeremy Buendia, who's making his comeback to the men's physique stage in an attempt to win his 5th men's physique Olympia title. And he's looking really, really good this far out. And he's a guy that I've sort of wondered with the new weight limits that are being put into men's physique, the fact that they're moving away from some of these bigger guys, at least from what they've been putting out from the IFBB Pro League. This almost sets up perfectly for Jeremy because he's not the biggest guy in stature. He's obviously one of the shorter guys in the division, which sort of goes against what Aaron Banks brings to the stage, our current Olympia champion. And honestly, I've always been a huge fan of what Jeremy brings to the stage. I think that he brings the right level of conditioning. He has the right shape. He poses very well in the men's physique. And really, I can't imagine him being outside the top 5, that's for sure. And he's going to battle for that Olympia title once again. And he's a guy that I actually think can win it back. So you guys can let me know in the comments what you think. Will Jeremy Buendia win his men's physique Olympia title back and take his 5th title? And what should he do if he does win that? Should he continue to compete or just hang it up, saying that he came back, won his title, and then just walk away into the sunset and live off being a 5-time men's physique Mr. Olympia champ? Now, quick story here, and this is Tom Platz and how his legs are currently looking. Now, Tom Platz is known for having either the craziest or some of the craziest legs of all time. I mean, he had supreme level of conditioning in those legs. They were cut up, and he trained like an absolute nutcase. So anyone who hasn't seen Tom Platz training back in the day, he trains with what you'd say is pretty average form outside of the squats and certain other exercises, but he would let his form go extremely loose and do very extreme things. But his level of intensity was absolutely through the roof. And you can see he's still got phenomenal legs, really, for a guy that's much older, obviously well and truly retired, considering this photo on the left here was 1983, which is how many years ago now? 30 years? Longer. 40 years ago now. So you can see the 40-year difference in those legs, and honestly, I've never had legs to the level of what his are at right now, so that's a little bit depressing in itself. But shout out to Tom Platz, and I wanted to feature that in the lead into talking about Jonathan Withers, who's 6.5 weeks out in these updates from his pro debut, because this guy has some of the craziest, if not the best legs on the planet right now, or maybe the freakiest, you'd at least say, because his quads just look not human whatsoever. And he's still got huge hamstrings from the side as well. Now, this guy is a little bit disproportionate, I'd say, because his legs are so crazy. It's only natural that he's going to be slightly disproportionate. Otherwise, he'd be Mr. Olympia. But he's bringing something pretty good to the stage. I'm very interested to see what he looks like once he's fully cut down. And you can see him in front of a bicep as well. He has huge arms too. So if he can fill that back out a little bit more, that's going to be his main area of weakness. But if he can continue to sort of fill that out and grow that and come in really shredded conditioning, I think Jonathan Withers can do pretty well in his pro debut at the Texas Pro. Now we have an update from Carlos Thomas Jr. We don't know which show this guy is doing, but he looks like his conditioning is getting better and better. He's working with Andrew Vu as well, as I mentioned earlier in the video, that Kennedy's also working with Andrew Vu. And Carlos has just an outrageous shape. His waist is looking really tiny. We know he had those health concerns earlier in the year with ulcerative colitis, but from whatever he's done since then, he looks like he must have it under control, because he doesn't look like he's holding a huge amount of water right now. The waist is tiny, the muscle bellies are crazy, and he looks like he's just putting on more and more size. So now, which show could it actually be? It could be Chicago in just over 2 weeks from now. It could be Tampa, which is a week later. It could be Texas, which is a couple of weeks after that. But I assume that Carlos is going to jump into one of these shows, and he's going to be up against the likes of maybe a Blessing of Waterloo, a Justin Shire, maybe even an Andrew Jackson, a Hunter Labrada. So these lineups continue to get better and better. I assume we're going to see Carlos in one of these shows, and it's going to be very interesting to see how he matches up against some of these big dogs in the IFBB making his pro debut. But let me know in the comments, do you think Carlos Thomas Jr. will win a show in 2023 and make his way for Mr. Olympia? Because these updates are absolutely insane. Now we've got Nick Walker once again, after I made that video the other day about Nick Walker talking about some of the Mr. Olympia competitors that he'll be competing against. He goes a little bit more into Derek Lunsford on this video, but also talks about why he thinks he'll win the 2023 Mr. Olympia. So this was on Mutant in the Mouth, which is Guy Sistonino and Nick Walker's podcast. It's really good. I'll put a link to that in the description below to the full episode, but here's a bit of what Nick had to say.
Okay, so yeah, talking about having a half-ass offseason last year versus how things have went this year, I personally feel, with the 20 weeks that I'm going to have now, no travel, strictly just fucking focus, right? Knock on wood, no hiccups. I honestly feel this is my year. I honestly do. I feel like everything is kind of in the line. And as long as, Matt's happy, I'm happy, right? Because he's the one that's got to look at me. So if he has no issues, and everything just keeps flowing the way it's going, I personally feel this will be the year.
So Nick Walker believes this will be the year. And what he means by that is winning the 2023 Mr. Olympia. And people have sort of written Nick off after not winning the Arnold Classic in 2023. But he is saying that he's had a phenomenal offseason. He is going to bring the big to the stage, which is what people want to see. I just hope that's not sacrificing too much in terms of conditioning. Hopefully the conditioning is right on, almost to the level it was at the Arnold Classic, but with that extra fullness that people want to see. People want to see the mutant be a mutant. That's for sure. So he has the right idea there, but sometimes people swing too far one way or the other. And with the Arnold Classic, he maybe swing too far in the way of, I'm going to bring the most conditioned package and sacrifice it maybe a little bit of that fullness, which is evidently what happened, and that's what the judges have said and whatnot. But if he can bring close to that level of conditioning, even if it's just a smidge off, I think that would be good enough, and just bring supreme freak factor, because that's what Nick is. He has to play to his strengths. Then Nick Walker is going to be right up there. I don't care what people say. I don't even care what I think in terms of how I think they should judge bodybuilding shows. The way they are judged, Nick Walker will be right up there, and I think he'll catch people that are off. And if I sort of look at it and go, everyone at 100%, maybe I'd put Nick Walker in 4th or 5th. But as we know, guys don't always come in at 100%. And this is how guys like Nick Walker push up into placings that maybe they shouldn't even be in because of their, genetic structure or shape or whatever. But Nick Walker is a freak. We pretty much know he's going to bring at least a very good level of conditioning. How good that is, that's going to be dependent on obviously what him and Matt Jansen, his coach, decide to do. But that's going to be very interesting. But in this video, Nick Walker also says who he believes will win between Hadi, Choopan and Derek Lunsford at the 2023 Mr. Olympia. And his answer might surprise you guys.
Please, let's just say if it came down to Hadi and Derek this year, and you're a betting man, who do you bet on?
Derek.
Yeah.
And listen, and I'll probably get a lot of shit from the Hadi fans because I still get roasted. Me and Derek are young. We're fresh. I think, I don't want to disrespect Hadi and say he's getting older, time clock's a ticking here. But I think the only reason why Derek lost to Hadi was from the front. And if
you talk about that grainy, like muscle maturity?
Yes, if Derek's backside matched the front,
I agree.
Derek's going to win. It's inevitable. Derek would have won.
Now, I don't believe that this year's Mr. Olympia, Derek's front side will match the back, because the back will probably continue to get more and more shredded and the front won't be to that same level. It's just hard to believe that it will go from being like it was last year to something like Hadi Choopan, who's just supremely shredded from front, but a little bit softer from the back. It's like Hadi and Derek almost have this opposite sort of look to each other, where Hadi's softer in the back, Derek's harder in the back. Hadi's harder in front, Derek's softer in front. But I've got to agree with Nick that, I'm not necessarily saying that Derek will beat Hadi, but I think that Nick thinks he matches up a little bit better with Derek, and he thinks if Derek isn't 100% supremely conditioned, isn't on, misses his mark a little bit, and he brings extra freak factor and maybe a little extra conditioning, then Nick could surpass Derek Lunsford. Do I think that's likely? No, I do have Derek Lunsford placing ahead of Nick Walker at the 2023 Mr. Olympia, but I'm not ruling it out by any means. So let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Who do you have winning out of Nick Walker, Derek Lunsford, and Hadi Choopan? Let me know in the comments below. Now, we have an update here from John Jewett. Now, this guy, I think, is a legit contender for the 2023 212 Olympia title. Do I think that's likely? Probably not, with the likes of Sean Clarita and other guys right up there like Keon Pearson. But John Jewett is looking next level, and he is really filling out that 212 weight class. And it sounds like from a video I've heard him on that he's going to do one more year in the 212s and then move to open, because right now it's going to be a struggle for John Jewett to actually make that weight cap. Now, John Jewett's actually placed pretty well in the 212 Olympia before, but that was a few years ago. I think he's made tremendous improvements since then. And if he can bring that really conditioned physique to the stage, hold on to enough of this mass, and he doesn't have to kill himself too far to get down to that 212 weight cap, I think he's going to be very good, and he's going to be one of the guys up there contending for that 212 Olympia title. And my early prediction is that I think John Jewett will push up into the top 3 of the 212 Olympia. You guys let me know what you think in the comments below, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, smash that like button, also subscribe and hit the notification bell button. That way you'll be notified of every video that goes up for myself, Xavier Wills at Desktop Bodybuilding, including all my coverage of this weekend's Mr. Big Evolution Pro, aka the Portugal Pro. I'll be going live for the prejudging finals as long as they have a live stream, which I think they do. And you'll be able to catch it all here on Desktop Bodybuilding. So that's it for me. I'm Xavier Wills. This is Desktop Bodybuilding, and we are out.